Hello, and welcome back to the Military Matrix. Tonight, we are witnessing what may become one of the most destabilizing moments in the Middle East in decades, a moment that strikes directly at the heart of Moscow's long-term strategic survival. Vladimir Putin's worst geopolitical fear is no longer theoretical. It is unfolding in real time. Massive, coordinated protests have erupted across Iran, shaking the foundations of the Tehran regime and threatening to collapse one of Russia's most critical remaining allies. What began as scattered demonstrations has now evolved into nationwide unrest stretching from Tehran to Mashhad, from Isfahan to Shiraz, and deep into Iran's industrial and oil-producing regions. Crowds are no longer chanting reformist slogans. They are openly demanding regime change. Security forces are overwhelmed. Internet blackouts are failing, and the Iranian leadership is facing a crisis that even years of repression may not be able to contain. For Moscow, this is nothing short of a geopolitical nightmare. Iran is not just another partner for Russia. It is a strategic lifeline. It is a weapons supplier, an energy ally, a sanctions busting channel, and a regional spoiler that helps keep Western attention divided. If Tehran falls into chaos or transitions into a government hostile to Moscow, Russia's entire wartime posture from Ukraine to the Middle East could be thrown into disarray. Let's break down why these protests matter, how they reached this scale, and why the Kremlin is watching events in Iran with growing alarm. Over the past several years, Iran has endured crushing economic pressure. Sanctions have hollowed out the economy, inflation has surged, the national currency has collapsed, youth unemployment is staggering, entire generations see no future under the current system. While the regime invested billions into regional proxy wars and missile programs, ordinary Iranians struggled to afford basic necessities. This tension has been building quietly until now. The current wave of protests is different from previous uprisings. This time, demonstrations are not confined to one social group or one city. They cut across class lines, ethnic divisions, and even traditionally conservative regions. Oil workers, teachers, students, merchants, and factory laborers are now appearing in the same streets, united by one message: the system is broken. Chants captured on the ground show a shift in tone. Protesters are no longer asking for reform. They are rejecting the entire structure of power. Images emerging despite censorship show security forces retreating, overwhelmed by sheer numbers. In some areas, local police units have reportedly refused to engage demonstrators, signaling potential cracks within the state apparatus. This is the moment that authoritarian systems fear most when loyalty begins to fracture. For Vladimir Putin, Iran's instability threatens to unravel a carefully constructed alliance built under pressure from the West. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Tehran has played a vital role in supplying Moscow with military hardware, particularly drones used to strike Ukrainian infrastructure. In return, Russia has provided Iran with technology, intelligence cooperation, and diplomatic cover at the United Nations. If the Iranian regime collapses or becomes consumed by internal crisis, that supply chain is at risk. Russian forces rely on Iranian-designed drones not just for battlefield operations, but as a symbol of resilience against Western sanctions. Losing that partnership would force Moscow to scramble for alternatives at a time when its defense industry is already under extreme strain. But the danger goes far beyond weapons. Iran serves as a strategic distraction for the West. Its tensions with Israel, the Gulf states, and the United States help divide Western military focus. A destabilized Iran could either explode into regional chaos or pivot toward reconciliation with the West. Either outcome is disastrous for Moscow. If chaos spreads, Russia loses a stable ally. If rapprochement occurs, Russia loses a sanctioned partner. This is why Kremlin media has gone unusually silent about Iran's unrest. Russian state outlets are minimizing coverage, framing protests as isolated disturbances or foreign-engineered provocations. Behind the scenes, however, intelligence assessments reportedly paint a far more alarming picture. The Kremlin knows this pattern. It has seen it before: mass protests, economic despair, security force hesitation, elite panic. This is the same script that toppled regimes from Eastern Europe to the Arab world. Putin's fear is not just losing Iran, it is the precedent. Such a collapse could reinforce globally. Authoritarian systems survive by projecting inevitability. Once that illusion breaks, everything accelerates. Inside Iran, the regime is attempting its standard playbook: arrests, intimidation, internet shutdowns, and force. But this time, the scale is overwhelming. Videos show crowds returning day after day despite casualties. That persistence signals something deeper than spontaneous anger, it signals resolve. Meanwhile, Iranian elites are reportedly divided. Hardliners push for harsher crackdowns. Pragmatists warn that excessive violence could trigger uncontrollable escalation. This internal division weakens the regime's response and emboldens protesters further. Russia understands this dynamic all too well. For Putin, there is also a domestic dimension to fear. Russian society is under strain from prolonged war, sanctions, and mobilization. If Iranians succeed in forcing major political change through mass protests, it sends a dangerous message to populations living under similar pressure elsewhere. Authoritarian solidarity is built on mutual survival. And that solidarity is cracking. Geopolitically, the consequences of an Iranian collapse would ripple instantly. Hezbollah's supply lines could be disrupted. Syrian power balances could shift. Gulf energy markets would react violently. Oil prices could spike or crash depending on the trajectory of events. Every major power is watching, but none more nervously than Russia. Washington and European capitals are cautious. Publicly, they call for restraint and human rights. Privately, they are assessing how a weakened Tehran might reshape negotiations, sanctions regimes, and regional security frameworks. Israel is on high alert, preparing for multiple contingencies. China is quietly evaluating its energy exposure. Turkey is monitoring refugee flows, and Moscow is calculating losses. If Iran's regime collapses, Russia could lose not just an ally, but a strategic buffer against Western isolation. It would mark another failure in Putin's attempt to build an anti-Western axis capable of reshaping global order. And time is not on Moscow's side. As protests continue to swell, each day without resolution increases the risk of irreversible change. Once masses cross the psychological threshold of fear, repression becomes exponentially less effective. History has shown this repeatedly. The streets of Iran tonight may decide far more than Iran's future. They may decide whether Russia's remaining geopolitical pillars can withstand the pressure of a rapidly shifting world. And as events unfold hour by hour, one reality is becoming impossible to ignore. Putin's worst fear is no longer hypothetical. It is here, it is loud, and it is shaking the foundations of power from Tehran to Moscow. Stay with the military matrix. This story is far from over.